Hello, I just wanted to show a couple techniques for creating fantasy maps. If you're a D&D player, or you do game design, or you're an author writing a book and you want a map of your world. Um, I came across a couple different techniques that I really like for doing this. And I just want to show those real quick. We'll be using Photoshop and Illustrator to do this. So in Photoshop, you create a new file, 1,000 by 1,000. I've tried using larger images, but then when we run the render clouds filter, the clouds are really small, so your continents are the same size as they would be if you did 1,000 by 1,000. So I just do 1,000 by 1,000, and then make sure you've got your default black and white down here, and then just run a clouds filter. And then you go down to artistic and do a cutout. And because the results are random because of the clouds, you'll find it may take a couple tries to get something good. But like in this result here, if we're looking at the light gray as being water and the dark gray as being our continents, since we're doing a world map, you don't want to use stuff that runs off the edges of the map, because it's supposed to be a map of the whole world, so you can't have images off of here. So we try to find continents that are isolated, that aren't touching the edge of the map, and that aren't connected to something that's touching the edge of the map. So this image here isn't really going to work for us, other than that one little island there and maybe this one here. So we're going to cancel out of this, and you can either just run another clouds and then try again with the cutout filter. And again, we have the same problem. Everything's running off the edges. So what we can do is add an adjustment layer of brightness and contrast. And then in this, we can bump up the contrast a little bit. And maybe the brightness some. And then select your clouds layer again and go and do your cutout. And we've still got the same problem. So go in and adjust this some more. And you can also actually just take if you want to force it to clear up some areas, we can just pick one of these like light grays in here, grab a brush, and we can actually, on the correct layer, we can actually paint, whoops, we can actually paint some of this out for the areas that we know are connected, to force us to get some continents that aren't connected to the edge of the map. Now when we run our cutout filter, we should have some isolated continents. There we go. So we've got a couple going on. Still have a little thing in there, so we can hit cancel and just cut that off. And you want to, give, like when you're going along the edge, don't just go straight across. Break it up a little bit, because we're really looking for that natural coastline on these areas. There we go, and then we'll run our cutout filter again. And there we go, we've got some nice continents going on. So we'll go ahead and apply this. And then we'll take this brightness and contrast and we'll just go ahead and merge it down. So we've just got the one layer there. And we'll create a new layer. And I'm just going to fill this with white. This will be our background. We'll go up on our top layer and use the magic wand with, I've got 25 tolerance anti-alias is turned on. You just want a little bit of tolerance because we're just deleting the water there. And if you like some of these little areas that are inside, you can keep those as lakes, or we can create lakes later. That's easy enough to do. I'll go ahead and leave them in this one continent so we can see how it works once we get into Illustrator. So that looks pretty good. We'll delete any of the stuff that's on the edge. Get rid of this one here because he's cut off down there. And I guess we don't really need this guy here either. And it's just easier to cut him out now and kind of figure out what we're working with. So that looks pretty good. Now we'll, on this layer, just hold down Control, click the layer, and that'll select our continents, and then we're going to fill them with black here. And that's pretty much it for now in Photoshop. So we can move this down a little bit, not that it really matters, but so we'll go ahead and save for web. I'm just going to save it as a JPEG. And there we go. So now we'll head over to Illustrator, and I just created a, just default new image, and I'm going to place our map that we just created in here. And first thing we're going to do is embed the image, and then we're going to do a live trace on it. And once we've done that, you want to hit this little icon up here to adjust your tracing options. And we want to adjust these, like the defaults for me are always 2, 10, and 20 on the path fitting minimum area and corner angle. So we're going to drop the minimum area down to 1. I'm going to do the path fitting on 1. And then the corner angle, we're going to change that to 0. And hit preview. And that looks pretty good. We've got some, because what you really want to pay attention to is the edge of the continent here. Make sure it's got good rough edges, but you want to watch out for any right angles, any straight lines, anything like that that's just going to make your map look really unrealistic. Like I can see right here on this little island, we've got a straight line on there, but since it seems to be the only straight line, we'll go ahead and go with these settings, and you may have to adjust them depending on your image or whatever. But once we're done, we'll go ahead and hit expand, and then right click it and ungroup, and then we're going to use the magic wand to select the white, and we'll delete that. When you're in your tracing options, you can also just set white to be transparent, and you don't have to do this step, but I always forget. So we'll just scale this down so it's on our artboard here, and then we'll go in and I'll show you what I was talking about with that one island. Go ahead and just use your direct selection tool, hit some of the points, and then we can just drag this out so it's not a straight line. Just give it some natural curvature. And that's pretty much it. Now you've got a vector version. We can save this. We can go into Photoshop, and add a bunch of adjustments to it and stuff to make our map. And also, while it's a vector, we can also take this stuff, and like I want this guy right here to always stay with this big one, so we'll go ahead and use the pathfinder and combine those so it's one object. I like the arrangement of these two, so we'll add them together, and that's pretty good. And of course you can take any of these and move them around, rotate them, get them to where it's to your liking, since it is your world. And we'll move him down a little bit and bring these these guys over here. And I would recommend, you know, if you really like this, but you know you want something big here, don't just grab this guy and zoom him up, because what happens is you're changing the level of detail on the coastlines up here as opposed to the coastlines here. These have lots of small little indents and, you know, peninsulas and things like that, where this one, you know, you can see the big, it's like it has big detail but no little detail. So rather than do that, what you can do is go back to Photoshop, create a new thing, bring it into Illustrator, and find a large object like this and put it up there, rather than just taking this guy and scaling him up. Another little trick that I found is if there are any areas, like if you wanted to do, oops, like say you wanted to do a regional map of just this bay right here. Well, when you zoom in to make that map, there's not very much detail. You know, if you're doing a map like this size, you don't really have a whole lot of detail going on with in regard to the shoreline there. So what you can do, and it's a lot of work, but you can take some of your scrap continents and bring them down into here, and you can actually use them to cut more detail out of the land. So we can rotate this, put it down here, select the two objects there, subtract, whoops, that guy's on the bottom, we need to bring him up. Subtract that out, and now you can see that we've got a, you know, much higher level of detail here on this shore than on the rest of it. So you could just create a bunch of scrap continents, shrink them, you know, trace them as vectors, shrink them down, and then you can actually use them to go along the edges here and roughen all that up. And using that method, you can actually make an infinitely scalable map where you just keep zooming in and keep cutting out small detail. So that it'll look, you know, fantastic from any level. But now that we've got this traced, you could either go ahead and create your map in Illustrator as a vector, or you could take this in to Photoshop and use it as a path to create selections, or any number of things. But you may also want to group these, you know. So that's one method, using the render clouds and then the artistic filter. I'm going to show you one more method really quick. Whoops. I'll just go ahead and start all over again here with new clouds. But this time we're going to add a threshold adjustment layer to it. And what this allows us to do is go in and actually, by adjusting this threshold, you can either look at it this way, as the black is the land and the white is water, and, you know, mess around with these settings until you get some black areas that, you know, like that one looks pretty good. Or you can kind of reverse your look on it and do it so that white is the land and black is the water. And now we've got, you know, an island here, an island here, an island there. And it's it works pretty good. I actually prefer the cutout method because with this threshold, when you go in here, it's really pixelated. I mean, it's like 8-bit video game pixelated. Where with the cutout method, it seems a little bit smoother, but you still have some detail. This one definitely gives you a lot more micro islands and a lot more little nicks and stuff around the edges. Like this right here is great, but you don't really get that with the cutout filter. But the drawback to it is if we take this and save it as a JPEG, sorry, I just got a text message there. I'll move this out of the way here. File, place, untitled. Now if we embed this, live trace, this method, I don't think it traces as well. You get a lot of, big areas, even if we jump in and we adjust these settings to what we used last time. Hit preview. It just doesn't seem to trace as well as the cutout version, in my opinion. But it's just another method of doing it, using threshold rather than cutout in Photoshop. So that's all I have. I hope this helped you out, and take care.